But if we address the mind first, the body will follow the mind. The more that the mind is liberated, the more the body will start to go back into harmony, into alignment. The greatest thing that we can ever do for someone is to just be present with them because compassion flows from presence. We were both sitting there in a park bench in upstate New York, and we both spotted the same spirit walking around. And as bizarre as it sounds, it was George Washington. You're tired, tired, and tired. Then before you know it, you're asleep. And that's kind of like the immersion into physical reality and identification with the body, or what I call body consciousness. And then this becomes all too real, and you're so identified. Liberation or non-identification is power because we get the return of our energy, and it's only when we have the return of our energy is when we can create whatever it is that we truly desire. Hi everyone. I just did a really interesting interview with Deanna, which is about to come up. We talked about various subjects, some that you've probably never heard, and we did go into my healing journey. Now, speaking about healing, I'm doing a class this Sunday on a subject that I can't talk about on YouTube. You remember what happened a couple of years ago, right? So I'm going to dedicate an entire class to going in depth about what really went on, and those that made certain choices are now suffering from those choices. I'm going to let you know from an enlightened metaphysical perspective what can be done in regards to some of the choices that were made. So click on the link below, and I'll see you in class on Sunday. And until then, enjoy the interview. It's very interesting. I'll see you soon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Block Talk. I can't even express my excitement that we are being joined by RJ Spina. Now, of course, you all in my community have heard me talk about him because he has brought so much incredible information to light that I know you will all be so incredibly grateful to hear and to learn. So just a little background about how I was introduced to RJ. It was one of the HLC members that actually invited me into the Holistic Leadership Council that sent me his 3 books. And we can talk about those. I've got one of them right here, Change Your Mind. I've actually lent out my other 2, which I know I'm not supposed to do because now I don't have them in my hand. But anyways, I've read them all and they're absolutely fantastic. And I also know that he has a new book on the way. But what grabbed me so much about RJ's work was how very complementary it is to block therapy. And one of the things, RJ, I know I'll get you talking in just a moment, but one of the things that I absolutely loved when I was reading and you were referencing about the boulders and the pebbles in the body, because my work is all about focusing on the adhesions and the scar tissue in the body and melting through those so that we can move through and move into pain as opposed to pulling away. So when I started reading your work and I recognized how complementary it was to what block therapy is all about and what my global community already understands. And by the way, they're all very, very open and conscious, and they're just going to love this conversation. I knew I had to reach out and see if you would get on a call with us so we could have a discussion and we could just dive in a little deeper about your story, your incredible healing that you went through, and then all of the amazing things that you're doing now for people all over the world. So first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. And thank you for having me. I know it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
So I'm happy we could make it happen.
Perfect. So, first of all, I mean, your story is just so spectacular, and that is going to capture the hearts of anybody and everybody. And I'm sure now you've told it so many times, but if you could just dive in and give us a little bit of insight as to what you went through and the process that you took to actually bring your health back to where it is today.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So it was April 23rd, 2016. So it was a while ago now. I had been sick for a few months. I was in a hospital for 2 weeks a few months prior. But on April 23rd, 2016, I became permanently paralyzed from the chest down from a spinal abscess that had compressed and crushed really from T5 to T10 with the emphasis on T7 and T8. So I was paralyzed from the chest down. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's autoimmune disease, pancreatitis, thyroiditis, severe sepsis, told I had 48 hours to live, a retracted heart. There was nothing positive, and there was nothing that looked good in any way, shape, or form. So I had emergency life-saving surgery, and it was something called the laminectomy. And this is where they often shave off part of the vertebrae, and then they scrape off the infection that was on my spine that was paralyzing me, and also near death because of the sepsis. So I woke up from surgery, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning exactly, and the only real accurate way to describe it is that I authentically awakened into what we would call an enlightenment, but believe it or not, there are levels of consciousness that are actually beyond enlightenment. But I woke up with full remembrance of how self healing and enlightenment or self realization actually works. They're both a process that anyone can undergo. And in the ICU, I actually started explaining in great detail to the ICU nurse who had come in about how healing actually works, and that I'm going to unparalyze myself. I'm going to resolve all these health issues, even though they're chronic and you can't get over them and you always have to take medication. And I said that I know exactly what to do. And in 100 days, I'll walk out of here. I won't be paralyzed anymore. And all these other diseases and chronic issues and life threatening conditions that I have now will be completely and utterly resolved. And so, she was a bit surprised to hear all that. But at the same time, I was very clear and I was very specific about how these things work. That healing is an alchemical process, as is self-realization, and anyone can undergo this liberation. And she said, "How in the world do you know any of this?" And I told her the truth. I said that I remember, that I absolutely remember everything. And the moment that I woke up, the tangible knowingness, not the mental understanding, the tangible knowingness of how healing and self realization actually works was in my hands, in my heart, within every cell of my body. And I knew I was going to unparalyze myself. I knew I was going to heal myself. I was so confident about it that I filmed the entire process. As you know, there's a video of this. You can see an MRI on my spine. You can see the surgeon's notes. You can see everything. But I knew that absolutely no one was going to believe that this is possible, that this really happened. So I filmed it. And of course, the understandings and the remembrances of self healing wound up making up the crux of my first book, Supercharged Self Healing. And I did exactly as I said in the ICU, and exactly on the 100th day, I walked unassisted, exactly as I predicted, and I show no signs of any of the other chronic diseases or life-threatening conditions that were afflicting me at that time.
Wow, that's just absolutely incredible. But I mean, obviously not for you because you knew.
It wasn't, yeah, I mean, like stepping back and looking at it, it's like, oh, that's remarkable or amazing. Or the body is designed for self repair and self healing. And the short answer is that we keep misprogramming it with beliefs, thoughts, concepts, ideologies, not embodying the true self, but rather taking direction from the conditioned mind, which just continues to take the body and further and further astray and out of whack. And only the truth heals. And I was marinating within the truth of the self. And so it was inevitable. It was agonizing. It was grueling. It was the hardest thing that I think I could have ever challenged myself with. I don't want anyone to think I snapped my fingers and like Merlin and everything was okay, because that's not the case. It took everything I had. But when you know, and like I said, it is not the mentalization, and I think that's really the key.
You have a new book coming out. Would you mind diving in a little bit and talking about that? Because again, I've shared a lot of your work with my community, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the more challenging things that I'm working with and how I've brought you in to assist them. But I know your new book is, well, I've just heard a little piece, so I would love if you could dive in a little bit and chat about that.
Sure, sure. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I have it right here. Okay, so it comes out August 8th. The only thing that's been optimized is you can pre-order the Kindle, but eventually the Audible, which I'll narrate, and the paperback will be available. So this is just an advanced copy that, of course, I demanded to get a few advanced copies. So the Law of Attention, and I'll read the subtitle and the subtitle, which kind of explains a lot. So the Law of Attention: the secret enlightened metaphysics for powerful reality creation, money manifestation, and higher intuitive functionality. And this is just this is prescriptive, so I actually give the how-to on all of these things. And the subtitle is Conversations with God, Spells by Merlin, Poems by Shakespeare, and Teachings by Saint Germain. So it is. I've said this, and for whatever it's worth, the Law of Attention actually is my all-time favorite book, and I just so happen to have written it. It covers subjects that are rarely covered. It accesses those incarnations in a very unique and rare way. Uh, I think it's going to be the most life changing and impactful book for people that read it. If anyone likes my first three books, this is brings it all together and then takes it about 40 levels past where we're at now. And the funny thing is about that is that I actually wrote it, most of it. I wrote most of it immediately after writing Supercharged Self Healing. So this is way back in 2018, and so it had to do with unification with God, and that was the inspiration for the Law of Attention, because it's really how you create reality. It's awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus. And the book breaks it down how to really actually tangibly bring things into this reality. So I wrote it a while ago, but because it was 7 years, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it is now, there are so many things that have occurred since then, and things that go on this planet and this world that I wanted to address. So I kept a lot of the stuff that I wrote from I think it was probably 2018 that I wrote, but then I updated and added a whole bunch of things that are very, very timely, that I think is what is required for humanity to have in terms of their tools in the tool belt. It's going to be life changing for people. It's the metaphysical handbook for
Mm.
reality creation, money manifestation. There's a whole section in there on higher intuitive functionality, clairsentience, clairvoyance, claircognizance. There's many more. So I named about 15 of them. And not only did I name them and describe them, I actually give the prescriptive meditation or exercise to actually turn these higher intuitive functions on, because I feel that there's a swath of incarnate humanity is ready to work in this way, turn on higher intuitive functions, operate in a completely different way. And I really feel that the Law of Attention is going to be the handbook for those that are ready to work with themselves in a far more advanced way.
Wow, that's very exciting. So August 8th, that's coming out. I can't wait to get my hands on that. So this is a strange world we live, and as I go through my time learning more and understanding more about what we're actually here to do, and what we're experiencing as an individual as well as a collective, it excites me so much. I mean, I can get pulled down and I can get like freaked out at times, but for the most part, I think I've elevated myself enough to be really excited, and I feel so blessed and grateful that we've chosen to be here at this incredibly strange time in human history, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a sense inside, and I think you actually know from what I've listened and heard. I think you actually are pretty certain about what's going on. I'm not so certain, but that's sometimes what confuses me. Are we heading into a world where we're simply here and it's the elevation of humanity as we are right now, or are things going to change? Like, I'd love if you could dive in a little bit more, because that's the part that I'm still not overly clear on.
Oh, well, it's both. So it's kind of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The actual answer is both. So The conditioned mind always sees things as it's one way or the other. It's this or it's that. It's good or it's bad. It's positive or it's negative. It's black or it's white. Well, the the true nature of what is that we can hold many different truths simultaneously and concurrently, because that's the nature of what is. So we're actually going to experience both. And thank God for the gift of adversity, because it's really us as a collective forcing ourselves to summon more of ourself to meet the challenge and obstacles that we've given ourselves as a collective. So it really is both at the same time. So we're going to see tremendous highs and tremendous lows, to label them, these things. And by the way, if we stop labeling, things become very clear. But it's really the labeling that really throws us off, because then it's this or it's that, and now you're creating a dualistic nature within yourself, and then you become conflicted, which is just kind of what you were talking about. If we just look at it as that it's awareness, which is what we are, and all of this is just experience, and that's all it is. And if we don't label and color the experience, then I think we're able to move through it with grace and with courage. But as soon as we label it, I think we give it such power, and we're also creating separation. And I think if we approach it the opposite way, don't label it and realize that this is all experience, and what we really are is actually untouched by everything that goes on here, because awareness can't be harmed. The body mind, which is part of and attuned to the local environment, is obviously affected by what goes on here. I mean, I was paralyzed with just that. The body mind definitely is affected by what goes on here, but not what has given birth to the body mind. That is not affected. And so when we reside as that, we're able to surf all the trials and tribulations. We're able to summon more of who and what we are. And we don't have to swim against a current that doesn't even exist. And that current doesn't exist. It's only through the labeling of things that we actually create this current. Oh, it's negative. Oh, it's dark. Oh, it's evil. Oh, is it? Well, labeling these things, I have found, for people, is completely and utterly disempowering. It's actually disempowering through label. There's no liberation of consciousness through the labeling of consciousness. And if we can step back and non-identify, I think we're going to I think we're going to experience what it is that we set out for ourselves. And really, what that is, we're going to see these tremendous highs and these tremendous lows concurrently. And this is because we are actually starting to touch the totality of possible possibilities within every single moment. So some of us are going to choose what I would call operating in a very low frequency way. And that's okay. It's a way, it's a choice. There's nothing right or wrong about it. And at the same time, there's going to be some that are going to choose to operate in a high frequency way. And also, there's nothing right or wrong with that. That is also a way. But we're at this moment where we're going to see both of these things play themselves out simultaneously and concurrently. And I think this is the beauty of the infinite potential and spaciousness of all of us, the God that is within our consciousness, and we can avail ourselves of any choice that we desire from moment to moment. One of the key features that we can utilize is non-identification. So at the at the highest levels of detachment, pain and pleasure are just bodily sensations, and it's no big deal either way. And so when we can fall that far back within to the self, within the I am, that sensations of pain and pleasure don't really matter. It's no big deal either way. And through detachment, we are no longer identified with the body, and then therefore the experiences that the body is having, or the thoughts or the emotions. And through that detachment, we get space, and within that space, that's the area that we can work. So what I found is it's the non-identification, never getting too high, never getting too low, whether it's severe pain or great pleasure, right? Because ultimately they're just bodily sensations, and they just come and go. And we're the awareness of these things. And if we can reside deeply and marinate within the awareness, within the truth, we're going to be able to move through tremendous pain, and we're never going to make a big deal about craving pleasure. So all of a sudden we reach this inner peace, this inner equilibrium, and it doesn't matter what the challenge is anymore because of the non-identification and non-attachment. We've created space between the awareness and the sensations themselves, and in that space we now have room to work. And this is where the repatterning, the letting go, and another way to look at it, if this is helpful, another way to look at it is that the caterpillar has to destroy itself to become the butterfly. For it to realize what it really is inside, it actually has to destroy itself. And so there's a real correlation between this and authentic self-realization or enlightenment, which is really the it's a destructive process. It's not constructive. Healing is a destructive process. It's not constructive. We're not adding anything. We are whole and complete as we are. So the more you add, the more you're taking away from the wholeness and the completeness. And it's the ability to surrender into these moments. And just like you were talking about, when we get a sensation of pain, we brace ourselves, we resist, we create more tension, we actually make it worse. And one of the things that I talk about in the book and is that, and like many of us, I went through levels of pain I didn't even think existed. I couldn't believe with the spine. I just really couldn't believe it. To be honest, it was unbelievable, and it never went away. Um, I trained myself to, when I felt pain, to relax more, to literally like let myself fall into it. And by meeting that pain with just pure presence, not analysis, not resistance, and not grabbing. So I wasn't pushing it away and I wasn't grabbing onto it. So when I felt that, I'd actually relax a little bit more. And when you meet something, a thought, an emotion, a bodily sensation, any kind of experience, if you meet it with that pure presence, that pure I am presence, it alchemizes it, is what it does, because there's no identification to it. And then all of a sudden the pain would just start to go down just like this. So there's many things that we can learn through non-identification and attachment and giving ourselves actually the opportunity to let go. But a healing crisis, a real healing crisis, is probably the biggest challenge, as you know, the biggest challenge we're ever going to give ourselves. And when I woke up paralyzed from the chest down in an absolute agony, I was free. it it was the first time in my life that I was totally free. And my state of being, my inner state of being, was the only thing that mattered. It was the only thing that was real. And I think that state of consciousness, that state of being, actually paved the way and allowed me the ability to put my destroyed body back together.
You had in, I think it was your second book, where you went to your childhood and you were sharing some of those incredible experiences that you were having, like you could see things. So am I correct in saying that? Like you've had some connection that is probably more deeper than a lot of the average people might have. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that was just fascinating to me when you were communicating with I'm sorry, I'm not good with detail, but I just remember the story when you were sitting on the bench and then you saw the person that wasn't there in anybody else's eyes, but you could see them. And could you dive in a little bit to that story and talk a little bit about your childhood and where these gifts, if you want to call them that, how you interpreted them, and then how that has become something that has formed your understanding of life at this time?
Sure. Yeah, that that with the park bench. So that's the third book. That's Access Super Consciousness. And the first chapter is very, very autobiographical, as you know, as you're referencing, right? So there were these, I don't know, four, five, or six, I don't remember, these four, five, or six instances within my life that were all pivotal. And they were like data points along the timeline of my own liberation. And yeah, some of those things were very unusual. So, but my earliest memories are of actually being outside of my body. So I was leaving my body as a kid. That's the first thing I remember. I can't remember anything before that. In terms of this incarnation, I can't remember anything before that. But yeah, I was leaving my body. I wasn't trying to. I don't. I don't think, and there still isn't. I don't think there was much identification with this body and with this experience itself. So I would just relax. And again, I wasn't trying to. I was a kid. I would just relax, and in a second, I would my consciousness, or really my sentience, would be looking at my body, and I'd be standing next to my consciousness would be standing next to the bed, and I could see my body in the bed, or I would be on the ceiling. And this kind of started, it's not really astral travel. It's something other than that. But I came into this world this way. I'll leave this world the exact exact way it came in, the same thing, being outside the body. So nothing's really changed since then. But yeah, I grew up with these kind of experiences. This was normal for me. Traveling different frequencies, realities, dimensions, parallel conditions, interacting with other advanced beings, having these conversations. I kind of felt like that every time I did this, I would come back into my body, and more of me would be more and more present. Like more of my innate love and wisdom and knowledge was coming back online every time I did this. And I even used to say as a kid, and who knows where I got this from, but I used to say, I retain all information and knowledge contained within this realm. And I used to say it almost like as this inner mantra, even as I was exploring these different frequencies. So in that sense, yeah, pretty unusual. I thought that was normal until I asked my mom. I really thought that was totally normal. I was shocked that she didn't do that. But anyway, yeah, I came into this world very different. But I think like everybody else, it, it it's like falling asleep. You're tired, tired, and tired, and then before you know it, you're asleep. And that's kind of like the immersion into physical reality and identification with the body, or what I call body consciousness. And then this becomes all too real, and you're so identified with everything that goes on. And this is where we get suffering from. I mean, this is really where we get suffering from. So yeah, there were a lot of unusual instances. In that particular one, um, I was with my friend, who's probably the best medium. That's one of the best mediums that's ever walked this earth, without question. I won't go into his other incarnations, but he's absolutely phenomenal in every way, and always has been. We were both sitting there in a park bench in upstate New York, and we both spotted the same spirit walking around. And as bizarre as it sounds, it was George Washington, who had gotten lost, had literally gotten lost. There was an aspect of his consciousness that was so identified with that incarnation that he hadn't sort of like called all of it back. And there was part of him that was still walking around. And this is like in, 2000, whatever year this is, right? Way, way after his incarnation. And we both spotted him at the same time. And because I have a personal connection with him, I started speaking with him. And for me to convince him that he had done his job, that it's over, that he had accomplished what I actually had to show him a dollar bill that had his picture on it, because he was so still into what his mission was, that he didn't even have any distance and therefore any clarity that it actually had been accomplished. And I literally had to show him a dollar bill to tell him, listen, you did it. You did it. You can relax. You can go home. You can actually go home now. And so that was one of those bizarre experiences. I've had a lot of them. But that's the one about the park bench. That was George Washington.
I know, and it's weird because when I read that, I had this feeling of sadness for him, that he was lost and trapped, and if it weren't for you to help him, I understand that there's no time and space outside of how we understand it. So it's not like he's been like, oh my gosh, it's been years and years. When am I going to go? But there was this sadness that, like, how many of these souls are roaming around, not knowing that they're able to move through. Like, can you see all of them? Like,
It. I mean, we can. I'm not sure anyone would want to. We can, absolutely. And I think this kind of speaks to deep, deep, deep identification, to whether it's your that specific incarnation, or to your role, or to an agenda that you had. When you see it as yourself, right? Which is not what is. But when you see it as yourself, we create these kind of scenarios. And I think we're under the misunderstanding that physical death is enlightenment, or is it? No, it's not. You're still you. You're just not in your body. It's still you. And so for him, it was still him. He was so determined to make sure that he followed through, that he never let go of it. He never actually let go of it. And like I said, it was only upon him seeing us, and then the communication, was with me, because like I said, there's an actual personal connection, but I had to show him a dollar bill for him for it to sink in, because I was telling him and it was okay. And he still wasn't ready. He still wasn't ready, even though, like I said, it was landing, but it wasn't really landing. And I had to show him. But so anytime we have this deep, deep identification with something, if we see it as ourself, right, we're kind of stuck to it. So where are we going? I use the analogy Spider-Man shooting his spider web to a building or whatever, right? He's now stuck to that building. He's not going anywhere. And so as an immortal creator being, we have the ability to get stuck because we don't have any limitations. So if we're deeply, deeply identified with an incarnation, with an experience, with a belief, with a role, with a concept, with an ideology, it doesn't even matter what it is. If we're deeply, deeply identified with it, we're stuck to it. We're stuck to it. And this is how all of this works until we come to the realization that we created this, and that's really not me, is the only time that we let it go. And George, I guess, needed some convincing, mainly in the form of seeing himself on the dollar bill.
So then if our souls are released and we come in through incarnations into other bodies, but we're stuck somewhere, does that mean then that the soul doesn't move outside of that place until it finds its way through, and then it's stuck there for eternity? If that may be, like, had he not encountered you, would he just be continually for eternity roaming around being trapped? Like that's
Well,
the that made me a little sad.
yeah. Well, until we're done, I mean, no one is stuck. We actually do it. So in other words, no one is actually trapped. No one is actually stuck. Right? This is all creation. So existence is self-creating, self-correcting, self-duplicating, and self-directing. So no one's actually stuck. Right? If we shoot a spider web to something, it's because we are doing that. So George, like countless souls, wasn't ready to let go. I mean, and we see this all the time with people not ready to let go of their pain, not ready to let go of their story, not ready to let go of their beliefs, not ready to let go of their first love or whatever it is, right? And then we create our own suffering because we won't let it go, because we won't recognize the truth. And the truth is that we're the awareness of everything, not what we're aware of. And that is the key. That is the catalyst for liberation. That is for self realization. That is the catalyst for healing. It's the catalyst for everything, because once we are seated in the awareness, right, and we're not identified and therefore attached to anything, what we're using to be identified and attached is our energy. So if your energy is attached and identified, you are actually disempowering yourself. So it's through this non-identification that we is actually empowering, because what happens is our energy starts to come back to us as we disidentify or no longer attach to what it is that we had stuck ourselves to. So the energy starts to return. And so liberation or non-identification is power, because we get the return of our energy. And it's only when we have the return of our energy is when we can create whatever it is that we truly desire.
So I work a lot with people that have had traumatic brain injury, a whole raft of other things. So for somebody whose brain has become impaired to a degree from injury, who can't maybe grip reality in the same way as prior to that, what what could you offer as far as understanding or recommendation around, because I direct people to you all the time. It's like, combined with what we're doing here, learn this work. But if we don't have a capacity to really internalize that mentally. And I know it's so much opposite to that, because even in your courses, you're like, stop asking questions. Like we're gonna take away. We're not adding more, we're removing. But if the brain isn't capable of understanding that, do you have anything to speak about that? Or
Yeah, I would say we're imposing the idea that this person must heal. So just let that land for a second. We're imposing the idea or the agenda or the intention that this person must heal or be healed and that I must do something about it. Why? Where did we even get that from?
mm,
This is very difficult.
yeah.
This is very difficult for people because they see themselves as they're supposed to fix, they're supposed to help, or I'm a healer and I'm a this and I'm a that. Well, not really. So if we can start to understand that experiences are what they are, and we're imposing that something must be done, right? We must heal this person, we must help this person, but yet they're experiencing what it is that they absolutely desire and need to experience by their own plan. So it's kind of just our own ego mind that actually imposes that we must do something about this. And the truth of the matter is that is absolutely untrue. That is absolutely untrue. What I have found is that the greatest thing that we can ever do for someone is to just be present with them, is to be there with them. Think about when you're sick or you don't feel well, right? What do you say? You say, just be here with me. Just, just, and they're like, don't you want me to do something? No, no, no.
Just leave me alone.
Just, just hold my hand. Just be here with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So think about that. Right. It's not so much, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you, no, just be here with me, because compassion flows from presence. That's really where it comes from. It's from being present. And if we care, I know this sounds funny, but it's true. If we care too much, it means we have a vested interest in a specific outcome, which means we can't be present and there is no compassion. Then all our wisdom, all our power, all our love, all our forgiveness, all our courage is not online because we've disempowered ourselves because we care about a specific outcome. And so, from my perspective, which I realize is bizarre, but from my perspective, I think we do the whole thing backwards. I think we do the whole thing backwards because someone has or whatever their injury is. Why are we imposing that we must heal them or that they desire to be healed? They desire to have that experience, which is why it happened. And it's not for us to impose. It's not. And if we can step back, we'll actually start to appreciate every experience deeply, even those that we label as bad or wrong or distasteful or painful. You'll actually be grateful for every experience, every single one of them. And if we can step back and stop trying to impose our agenda and our will on everyone, I actually think the wisdom will flow through and we'll know what to do from moment to moment.
Yeah. As you were saying, when you said let that sink in, I just kind of felt like, whew, like that nice letting go. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So holy smokes, you've have such an incredible path behind you as well as ahead of you. And again, you're just imposing your beauty on the world in such a enormous way. Do you have any last words you'd like to share?
Oh, well, I
I
first
mean,
off,
you got many.
yeah. Thank you again for the kind words. The body follows the mind, right? So if we can liberate the mind, the body is going to follow. And if we can all keep that in our back pocket and realize that all disharmony, believe it or not, all disharmony comes from disharmonious thought patterns, and all thoughts are in context to something else, a belief, a role, an ideology, a concept, right? So if we can start to distance ourselves from that, we'll start to realize that we are the co-creator of every moment, of every experience. So what is it? What is it that we designed for ourselves that we want to get out of this experience? If we could start to look at things that way, because every experience is so rich, if we could just be present with it,
Mm.
if we can just be present with it, if we don't have this knee-jerk reaction, I have to fix that, I have to heal that, I have to heal him, I have to fix it. Believe me, I've been there. I've seen, I don't know, over 10,000 people in person in my life since I started doing this as RJ, since I started doing this. And it's part of it is because we're uncomfortable with someone being uncomfortable, and we feel like we have to do something about it. And that is a deep, deep truth.
Mm.
And if we can let that shift occur based upon that and realize it's everyone is on their own journey, they absolutely are. But if we address the mind first, the body will follow the mind. The more that the mind is liberated, the more the body will start to go back into harmony, into alignment. And if this is not liberated and it's always in a state of agitation, there is no way that the body is ever going to heal or ever remove itself from its own state of tension, because it's impossible, because the body is following the mind. If we can relax the mind and be present, then we use techniques like you have or these other techniques, we can make incredible strides. But we have to start with not trying to do something out of fear, not trying to do something out of desperation. If we can be at peace now and then harness our intention to create whatever desired result that we wish. So for me, I wanted to walk. Duh. I wanted to walk again and not be deathly sick. But I was at peace. I was completely at peace. And yet I would start to work with myself while still being at peace. And I think if we start to do that, I actually think that will unlock our ability to do anything. But if we're not at peace now, if we're coming from fear, desperation, we have limited what we could do because we're coming from a collapsed consciousness and from a constricted energy. So the potentiality of what we could actually create from is incredibly limited. And it's also like building a house, as an analogy. If the foundation of the house has got a whole bunch of problems, it doesn't matter how nice you make the second floor or the third floor, what you painted it's going to come down. It's going to come down. So if the mind is not at peace, the body is eventually going to fall apart. It just will. But if we build the proper foundation about the ability to be present and the ability to be at peace with everything, even when you're in agony, and I know exactly what that's like, to be at peace now and then work with yourself optimally, the results that we can get are off the charts. And also at the same time, really think about this. If you're at peace now, how much does the end result even matter?
Wow, beautiful. I'm reminded me of probably one of my most stressful times in life. I had just lost a business, a whole bunch of money. I was going through a marriage breakdown, and then I was handed papers. I was being sued. And it was interesting because in that moment, I'd kind of hit my ceiling of stress. And
Mm,
then I received the papers, and I just kind of laughed because I'm like, this isn't even affecting me. I've got no
mm,
more bandwidth for more stress. And then that in itself brought such clarity to me. I thought, well, if this isn't affecting me, why would it ever? And why
mm.
do all these other things even matter now? So it was interesting that moment of realization that, huh, okay, so nothing really matters.
That's right. It doesn't. I mean, we assign meaning, right?
Yeah.
For you ask, if you ask one of my neighbors what's most important to you, and they'll tell you, oh, my kids, or my family. You go to another neighbor, oh, my job, my career. Ask someone else, oh, it's traveling. So ask someone else, oh, it's health, right? We assign meaning. In and of itself, existence doesn't have any meaning. It's literally a blank slate. And so we get to choose, right? But the less mental and emotional weight or gravitas that we give to anything other than our inner equilibrium, the better off we'll all be.
Mm. Wow, beautiful. Well, I cannot wait for August the 8th. I will be making sure my whole community knows to get those books. I think a whole bunch have got your first three already and probably have taken some of your courses. And again, just thank you so very much for your service to humanity and to this world. It's truly spectacular. And you are truly allowing people to see something different and live in a different being in this world with a different perspective. And it's just so powerful. So RJ, thank you so very much for your time.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And thank you again for the kind words. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.